Hola Fede, buenas tardes.
Buenas tardes, ¿qué tal?
Buenas tardes a todo el público también, nos están viendo, gracias por sumarse. Ya vamos a sacar el cartel y vamos a arrancar de una vez. Gracias a todos por unirse hoy a escuchar esta nueva edición de Product Tank. Yo en lo personal estoy muy contento porque si bien tuvimos una edición en febrero que hicimos junto al equipo de Product Tank Ciudad de México, este es el primer espacio que hacemos directamente desde Product Tank Cancún. Así que es el primero del año que estamos organizando directamente nosotros y estamos muy contentos porque tenemos dos speakers realmente de lujo. Así que en breve voy a pasar a hacer la presentación y a cederles la palabra a ellos. Pero antes, como siempre, quería contar un poquito de qué es ProductTank. Ya esta comunidad tiene ya algún tiempo, así que muchos ya la conocen, pero siempre es bueno refrescar la memoria y aprovechar para contar las novedades. En primer lugar, les quería contar que el ProductTank ya creció a más de 200 ciudades. Es un meetup organizado por gente de producto para gente de producto y hoy por hoy es la comunidad de producto más grande del mundo. Creo que, si no me equivoco, la cantidad de miembros ya va por arriba de los 120.000. Así que sí, es una comunidad bastante grande. Y como decía, 200 ciudades. De hecho, aquí en México ya con Ciudad de México, Mérida y Cancún, tenemos 3 ciudades que estamos participando de esto y en Latinoamérica hay muchas más. Y además de lo que podemos decir de ProductTank, Mind the Product, que es la organización que digamos, da vida a estas pequeñas comunidades locales. Mind the Product tiene algunas herramientas adicionales que les quería presentar y que conozcan a los que no las sepan. En primer lugar, hay un canal de Slack que es abierto a todos los que quieran participar para compartir información, para intercambiar de vuelta más, tener una comunidad más abierta con gente de producto con la que quieran interactuar. Así que siempre es bienvenido para poder seguir extendiendo los vínculos y debatiendo distintos tópicos de la disciplina con más gente. Por otro lado, también está el newsletter, que espero que todos estén suscriptos. Es un newsletter semanal que da información interesante y artículos que son muy relevantes para la comunidad y para cualquier cosa cualquier novedad o cualquier, inclusive, framework o tools y herramientas que puedan llegar a utilizar. Y por último están las conferencias, que si bien anualmente eran en San Francisco, en Londres y después más adelante se hizo en Singapur, desde el 2020 son conferencias virtuales. De hecho, hay una ahora en abril, otra después en julio, en octubre. Y si van a Mind the Product/conferences, van a poder ver todas las que están organizadas para adelante. Son conferencias que son digitales, con lo cual nos podemos unir desde cualquier lugar del mundo. Si bien están preparadas para algún continente en particular, sobre todo por la zona horaria, la verdad que tienen speakers de renombre mundial y que son contenido muy interesante para cualquiera que quiera consumirlo. Y por último, si quieren ir un paso más allá, fuera de este material que ofrece Mind the Product, también ofrece training también con personas trainings de muy buena calidad, con profesores muy interesantes. Así que también, y son bastante específicos de temas que los cuales ustedes quieran profundizar. Así que les recomiendo a los que estén buscando seguir expandiendo su carrera, que se peguen una vuelta por Parallel Trainings y vean qué material les puede llegar a servir. Y ahora sí, sin más, y agradeciéndoles nuevamente a todos por unirse, les quiero agradecer a nuestros speakers de hoy por sumarse. Como saben, esta es una edición 100% en inglés, así que vamos a hacer un switch en breve a poder hablar en inglés. Y hoy los speakers, perdón que el slide quedó en el orden inverso, pero vamos a estar hablando primero con Ashmin Varma, que nos va a estar contando sobre el desafío de hacer producto en la época del COVID para la industria de travel, ¿no? Él está en Kasai y nos va a contar un poquito esa experiencia. Y Heike Rapp nos va a contar sobre el valor del diseño, una presentación muy interesante. Que más allá de su experiencia actual como VP of Design, también trabajó muchos años en el equipo de diseño de SAP, de SAP. Así que tienen unas experiencias muy interesantes ahí para compartirnos. Así que sin más introducción, voy a sumar a Ashmin.
Awesome. Thank you, Nacho.
Ashmin, very nice to see you again.
Thank you, Nacho. I'm good. Yourself? Thank you for having me.
Doing great. So you are located in Mexico City, right?
I'm in Mexico City. It's Canadian, as you can tell from my accent, but Mexico City for the last year or so. Right before COVID. 2 weeks before COVID, actually. So.
How is your Spanish going?
Más o menos. It's like I'm embarrassed. Tengo vergüenza, you know? Puedo entender en todo, pero un día voy a cambiar.
Okay. So we will wait you. Let's say in
Yeah,
1 year we can do a new event in Spanish then.
March 2022, you'll hear me in Spanish for sure.
Okay, so I don't want to spoil your introduction of yourself, but you have a very interesting career working in McKinsey, Microsoft, very interesting companies. I heard you also work on IoT, an experience that we would love to hear in another occasion. But really interesting now that you are in Mexico and in Kasai.
No, absolutely. Yeah, it's weird because most people I talk to, especially in product, come from very unorthodox backgrounds anyway. So mine was like consulting, business background. I moved into healthcare, actually, strategic design for healthcare, technology, spent some time in social innovation, and then landed here in Mexico City, working in hospitality and product, which is a roller coaster of a journey, but I'm in love with it. I'm in love with the industry, the company, everything.
That's amazing. So with that, I will leave you the stage so you can do the presentation. And thanks again for joining us.
No, thank you so much, Nacho. And this is weird where I can't see anyone that I'm presenting to for the first time. So hope everyone who's watching is smiling and safe wherever you guys are. So like Nacho said, I'm the VP product of Kasai. But what is Kasai? Let's jump into that really quickly. So at Kasai, we want to reinvent the way the world travels. And so when you think about Kasai, we can think of it as a hybrid between Airbnbs and hotels. So we have like the locality, the sense of community, the nice locations of Airbnb, but you also have the safety, the concierge, the daily cleanings, for example, that you would get in a hotel. And so what we pride ourselves at Kasai is amazing design that's fully local, the latest smart home technology, and the local ambiance and community. That was a bigger part of our offering, obviously, before COVID, but something that whenever COVID finishes is something we want to bring back. We want to bring back so experiences, partnerships, and the sense of community as well. So that's Kasai, but let's talk about product. The product at Kasai, at least my role, is a little bit different from most, I think, product managers. And the product at Kasai spans the physical and the digital. So you can think about product at Kasai in 5 different main buckets. The first one is booking, the Kasai.com website. How do we get people into our apartment? The second is the in-apartment experience itself. So design, comfort, and the IoT hardware that Nacho was alluding to. Number 3 is what I just spoke about in that community, partnerships, experiences that we can give to our guests that is not in the apartment, but in the city. The fourth is all about concierge and communication. So mobile apps. How do people order different things if they need to? So like that digital part is something we take care of as well. And the fifth part is internal tools. So tools that we use for operations, for housekeeping. How can you preemptively know if a Wi-Fi is going down versus our guest telling us that later? So internal diagnostic tools is something that we work on as well. So that's product. And like I mentioned, I came here a year ago and something happened about a year ago. And that's, I think, if you think about what the worst thing that could happen to a tech startup focused on hospitality, would be a global pandemic. And so it's been a weird year, to say the least, but I can honestly say that how we reacted has actually made us stronger today. And so that's what I'm going to be talking about in the next couple of minutes. This is just to show, before COVID, our daily rate was about $100 plus USD and 90% occupancy. Life was good. We were thinking about expansion. I mean, we had high dreams. And then March came around and we stumbled to about a 40% occupancy, $60 a daily rate. This is just to say basically that we were scared. This was just a scary situation that was happening in February and March. And so we identified 3 issues that we had to solve. The first one is, who are our new guests? So who in Mexico City is looking for Kasai? And if we find these guests out, what are they looking for? How do we adapt our apartments for that? And after plugging the present, let's make sure this never, ever happens to us again in the future. How do we alleviate any risk of this happening? And so the 3 things that we did, and the 3 things I want to describe about today, is 1, we discovered innovative ways to identify our new guests, and we reacted quickly to adapt our online and offline product. And I think these 2 are a little different and strange for 2 reasons. One is, like I mentioned before, a lot of our product is offline. And so we don't have heat maps. We don't have website heat maps to see where people are going, how they're using our apartments. And so we really had to think about other innovative ways, different people we can talk to, different ways we can communicate with our guests to understand exactly what they're using our apartment for. And two is that we have design and technical debt. Like if we had to change 300 TVs tomorrow, we couldn't do it. And so the ability to adapt to our apartments is also a little bit limited versus maybe a website or an app. And then three, we leverage data to figure out ways that we could alleviate any risk of this happening in the future. And this included sourcing decisions, where we're going to go, and new operating models. So if we dive into the first one, the three major things that we did in order to understand who our new guest personas are. The first one is advertising, leveraging advertising and marketing as a data collections tool. The second was just looking at external market trends. And the third and most important is really conducting in-depth market research, primary research with our guests and our guards and our housekeepers. So for the first one, the first tactic, which is very simple to do, a very quick and easy experiment, is that we found 4 channels across Facebook, Instagram, etc., and basically put out 3 or 4 different messages, each targeting a different part of our product. For example, working on flexible terms or desk space or 3 TVs. And so by doing this and measuring engagement, we try to figure out exactly what our customers were looking for, our new customers were looking for, and what we had to emphasize and what we had to invest in. So here's a sample of what we did. We basically looked at our post results and we looked at average group results, compared engagement, reactions, comments, questions, and notes, all these things like added to our understanding of what our new product had to be. Even when it came down to photos, we looked at the photos that were most liked, and that helped us understand where we had to invest. Maybe we had to invest more in living rooms or bedrooms because that's more important. And it also helped us with our Kasai.com organization of pictures as well to increase sales. So that was the first part, a quick and easy experiment. The second one was macro external trends. And so this is stuff like flight data, road traffic activity, behavioral shifts in people. And I know this might seem really, really macro and high level, but there's really interesting details, especially from the flight data and road traffic data that helped us understand how we had to change our product. For example, there was a lower drop in number of cars versus flights. So cars are still coming, obviously at a lower rate, but they were still coming while flights had declined, like we all know. Domestic flights were also recovering fast. And so this included changes like, if we don't have parking for a building, how do we make sure we can give parking to a guest? Changing our product in that way. We know we have to focus on domestic guests. We need to figure out our auto messages, our in-apartment communication has to be in Spanish. So really change what people were looking for and how we impacted or adapted our product towards that. And the next two, which is shifts in behaviors and development of the COVID vaccine case count and distribution, helped us in understanding where we should be growing and when we should be growing. So obviously a shift from major city to a beach means that we should probably move there, but when? That depends on the COVID case count and vaccine. So we're constantly looking at these trends. And third, and the most important, like I mentioned, is remaining in close contact with 3 groups of people in order to understand how they were actually using our product. So the first one was getting almost personal relationships with our power users, our long-term guests, to understand their motivations and needs. So a lot of us in the company had friends in the company. We made friends with people that were staying here for basically a couple of months that were stuck here from abroad. They felt lonely too. It was a weird time for everyone. So it was a sense of community with Kasai and our guests as well. And we also used Instagram surveys to crowdsource design opinions and to figure out what exactly we should be investing in and where. The next two, and I think the most important, were our guards and our housekeepers. And so we launched a quick and dirty MVP for our guard app, which helped us understand when our guests were coming in and when our guests were leaving. That really helped us optimize our cleaning schedules. And we regularly interviewed our housekeepers to understand our guests' habits. So if there's dishes in the sink, that probably means people are cooking more. Are people having more coffee or tea? And so these kinds of questions we kept asking housekeepers to have a finger on the pulse of how our guests are actually using our product, in this case, the apartment. So that was one. Now that we actually understand who our guest is and what they want, we have to react really, really quickly to adapt our online and offline product. And so the 3 things that we did One of them was analog, like I mentioned, the actual apartment itself, the experience itself. And the second one was focused around the website and the app, so digital products. So we got these needs from our customers, and now we had a few months max to adapt it. And so the first thing we realized was that it was a really weird time. The pandemic was a strange time for everyone. And a lot of the people that ended up at Kasai were stuck away or were quarantining, or it was just a difficult time for everyone. And something, even in conversations with our concierge or CX, we realized that like health, wellness and health were important to our guests. And so we launched a brand of wellness kits that we dropped off if they wanted it. We launched weekly yoga lessons for a sense of community and giving people a way to exercise. So that became a big part of our social media and just the way we interacted with our guests. The second was that our length of stay actually went from 4 days to a month. And so that requires a whole different suite of services. The first one was a shift to work from home. So we had to make sure every single desk was 1 meter away, max from an outlet. We offered we offered programs where guests could borrow desks, standing desks, monitors, mice, whatever they needed. We introduced laundry and dryer machines into certain apartments, and obviously increased the amount of cooking utensils people had since everything was shut. So changing the entire experience and making it more long-term. And then probably most importantly was the sense of security about sanitization. And so we launched our Kasai Cleanliness program, where basically we upped our cleaning standards dramatically, including training for our housekeepers. We added a seal on the doors to make sure our guests had confidence that we'd actually clean everything. We added a personal health kit, so people had masks, sanitization, whatever they needed. And we also explored innovative solutions and technological solutions like UV lamps in order to clean beds, et cetera, et cetera. So those are 3 or 4 major things that we did, which is illustrative of our insights from the first part, our first section. The second was because, like I mentioned, we went from 4 days to 26 days, we had to rapidly change our website. That included messaging, pictures. We used to talk about design and like the city so much, but we had to switch to comfort. And a big thing that we had to change was, if you're moving to a long-term stay and we're feeling like a landlord now, you want to have a personal relationship with us. So instead of booking one night in a hotel or Airbnb, we changed the call to action to make it contact us. And so we made this process a lot more personalized and a lot more landlord versus like quick hotel like it used to be. And then probably the most painful was that our hero feature, which is kind of funny thinking back to it now, our hero feature in the app used to be a city guide, where like we handpicked the best restaurants and reservations that were chosen for the international traveler that we used to have before in mind. That obviously went out the window when COVID started. And so we pivoted really, really fast and accelerated the development of our touchless entry. We always have smart locks. We always had like keypads, but we moved it so people didn't even have to touch the keypad anymore, because that's something that they wanted based on our conversations with them. And we focused on a concierge chat, so people had a channel to communicate with us and felt safe in that like they would always be heard. So we had to pivot on our app really, really, really fast. And that, again, comes from the insights we had from the first section. So that's basically what we did. The first part is understanding who our guests were. And the second part was basically reacting to this really fast in an offline and online way. But what we needed to do over the last year was to make sure that this never happened to us again. And let me just describe the situation that was happening back in the day a year ago. Our model was that we rented out apartments. We put the best design, best IoT, best concierge services in there. And then we rented it out to short-term people, mostly international, but domestic as well. So when travel completely ended, occupancy fell down, our average daily rate fell down, we were left with all the risk. And so the idea is that over the next year, how do we prepare and make sure that this never happens again? And so what we did, and this is an experiment that we ran, was that with the hypothesis that I mentioned before, and I think all of us know, especially everyone in Cancun right now, is that non-urban destinations have been outperforming urban hubs. And we think this trend is here to stay for the foreseeable future, right? So that's one hypothesis that we wanted to chase. The second almost like guarantee that we wanted to have is that our existing model requires really high initial investment, long-term contracts, and it takes some time to set everything up. How do we run this experiment really, really fast without getting any major capital investments? And so the experiment was to expand to popular beaches in Mexico using new models of partnership with property owners. And this was really interesting for a singular reason, in that before this, it had been a demand market, in that we knew supply. Mexico City is a big city. We can find nice places in Condesa, Roma, etc., and then we can rent it out. But for the first time, we really, really, really focused on our landlords. And so we interviewed so many landlords across the beaches in Mexico City, understanding the pain points, understanding the differences and the nuances between renting in one place and the other. And so product-wise, in my head, the landlord had become a new customer that we had to really develop empathy for. And so that happened over the last year, and we pivoted really, really fast, trying like so many different ways of partnerships, like property management, Kasai as a sales channel. We pivoted so many different times. And last month, we finally launched Getaways. So Getaways is a collection of condos and villas across like you can see here, Cancún, Vallarta, etc. We have 10 plus listings, and we're growing every single day. And we have a healthy stream of bookings. And the best part is that we did this with minimal investment from learnings that we had over the last year. And so looking back from a year ago, just reflecting when doing this experiment, this presentation, is that we have the most live units ever. Our daily rate is almost back up to what it was pre-COVID. Our occupancy is what it was back up to what it was pre-COVID. And we're in 6 different destinations now, with all these destinations happening with limited investment. And I think the two things I'm most proud about is that we know our customers better than ever, and we know our landlords better than ever, which I think is a huge, huge win coming out of, it's been a tumultuous last year. Key challenge moving forward as we basically have expanded to different business models and different locations is that as we keep adding these variables, how do we keep delivering a top-notch experience, a Kasai experience, no matter the operating model, location, etc., especially if you start losing some of the control that we have over the experience because we're not investing as much. So those are the 2 things top of mind moving forward for me over the next couple of months and the next year, which I'm super excited about. And I just want to end by saying, like, this year has had so many ups and downs and a lot of losses, to be honest. We lost our biggest sales channel in Airbnb for a while in the summer. We lost our existing customer base, which was primarily international. And I think all these losses forced us to be scrappy, bootstrappy, try to figure things out. And I can honestly say that I think coming out of this, whenever COVID ends, we're going to be in a stronger company, and just a company that has a wealth more knowledge about their customers and their landlords. And that's about it. That's been the journey so far. Thank you so much. And yeah, if any questions, any comments, suggestions, I would love suggestions as well. But yeah.
Thanks a lot, Ashwin. That's been great, very insightful. So thanks so much for the presentation. We have a few questions. I will get the benefit of being the host and giving the first one. I'm wondering, you mentioned that you made some structural or strategic changes that you think are here to stay. So probably when things get back to normal, say in a year or something, you will get some of the old model back. Are you planning to kind of do both or separate the businesses, or how do you think you will manage that?
Yeah, so I think the issue is that like all of us know like the world is changing for at least like Mexico City is always going to be a place where people come, right? But over the last year, the world has been exposed to this fact that you can work from anywhere, you can work from a beach. And it's hard for us to just sit around and not take any action on that giant trend that all of us know. And so the key thing is that we wanted to do it in a way that didn't require investment. So like if it doesn't work out in a year, we're not screwed. We have a way out. We know we're good at Mexico City. We know we're good at what we do over here. So worst comes to worst if something doesn't work out. And I think it will. Like most signs so far show that it will. Mm-hmm. We can continue on this path as well.
Okay, great. Fede, any question from the audience?
Yes, I have a question. I like to know, Ashmin, how big is your product team? Because it's amazing, really, all the features and things that you've done during the last year, and in this context, especially for the travel industry. How is your product team? How is composed by how many are you?
Yeah. So in March, when I started, it was me. It was two people, I think, two people, and now we're about 8 or 9. I think the strength here lies in our engineering team. I honestly think we have one of the best engineering teams in Mexico, if not Latin America. And that's something that Nico, our CEO, has spent a lot of time and effort in recruiting and focusing on from the very beginning, which is why even the introduction is that we're a tech first company. We're a tech company. Hospitality is something that we do. And so if we think about it that way, then pivoting like we would for an app or a website, even an apartment, doesn't seem that hard and that difficult. But I will say out of these 8 people on the product team right now, a lot of them are focused on partnerships and offline things as well. So it's a mixture of both.
Okay, congratulations.
Thank you.
Really. I guess I have we have a business question.
Almost.
Yes, about how can we collaborate as a partner and experiences if we have great tours in the city?
Let's do it. My email, please. I'll send it out. I can type it wherever you want. I would love to partner on more experiences for sure. Always open.
Just building on top of that and making more product-related question. How do you think? You mentioned that the city guide part of the application didn't do so well in this last year. How do you see that coming back to life, or what's your plan on that?
I think so. I think honestly, my pipe dream is to make that city guide personalized for each guest based on their data. So like if you say you like sushi and you live in Kasai, let's find you a sushi restaurant right next to you. That would be my dream. The Kasai guide is still on the app. Things are opening now, so I think it'll start becoming more useful. But as far as experiences goes, just going back to that, the way I'm thinking about structuring it, and I would love your thoughts or suggestions, is that we're competing against hotels, but we're a decentralized hotel. A hotel is good in that it has a lobby, it has a gym, it has a spa, it has a coffee shop. Like it has these amenities that you can't do normally. And these experiences and partnerships that we want to find, I want to structure it so that we're basically like a hotel. Like what is our lounge? What is our coffee shop? What is our breakfast in bed? So starting off with that concept, that framework, so like let's at least match the hotel sense of these third-party things. And then from there, adding more and more as we go on.
Super interesting. One final question from Manuel, who is in Mexico City, by the way. Thanks for sharing, Manuel. What measurements are you using to know how to change the approach or strategy according to the constant changes in the market? Yeah, so it's interesting. Like basically what we want to do is occupancy times our average daily rate, right? We can jack up our daily rate as much as possible, then our occupancy goes. And so we're looking for this number. I will say as a product team, our focus is increasing the average daily rate. Like we want to increase perceived value in so many different ways so that people are willing and like see the value in paying more because it's an experience like no other. So that's the high level macro, the macro goal. Below that, things like reviews. It's not perfect, but it works. We try to use sentiment analysis. We try to use CX tickets to understand what's happening. So it's a constant process. Like I said, like the issue with having, and like the beauty of having an offline product is that it's hard to measure, and it's an enclosed space. We're not in the apartment with them, so it's hard to exactly measure the value that people are getting from the apartment besides from reviews. And when a review happens, it's too late to fix it anyway. And so yeah, ADR, reviews, and I would say like CX related metrics. Super interesting. Well, thanks so much, Ashmin. Has been a great presentation. Again, very insightful. I will bring Heike on stage now. Thanks again. Heike.
Hello.
Wow.
Hi.
How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing great.
It was a great presentation.
Yeah, I will add your screen to the stage now. Oops. We'll see.
Okay. Oh, sometimes we have that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Nice.
Everything
Great.
good?
Yeah.
Yes.
So a brief introduction. Again, I don't want to spoil your introduction of yourself, but Ege, you have a really great
Whoa.
experience
Yes.
as VP of Product of Calibra right now, and previously in SAP, which is very well known in Mexico, by the way. And I know that our community has a lot of product designers as well. So we're really interested to hearing this content as well.
Okay, perfect. All right. Well, without further ado, I will talk about the value of design. And as you can see from the picture in the background, there's a table with the seats, because designers, they always ask, how do we get a seat at the table? And here are some pointers to that. So a little bit of introduction. So what is Calibra? Calibra is actually a Belgian company, or of Belgian origin, headquartered in New York, international. I've been the VP of design since last August. So during the year of COVID, right, interviewing on screen, being on screen all the time. So lots of Zoom calls. And Calibra is really about building a data intelligence graph. So Ashman, you also mentioned data, right? How important that is. So for us, really making those data-informed data citizens that you can find insight quickly to give you insights to run your business better. And yes, beforehand, I was at SAP. I was at Autodesk as well, more in a brand strategy role. Old Navy, I was the very first employee for oldnavy.com. So really building e-commerce from the ground up. So also Ashmin, going back to the balance of the digital and the analog, it was a wonderful journey. And I was also at CNET, and background in industrial design, and then an MBA in design strategy. So really full-blooded designer all of my life. And a little bit about the design team at Calibra. So the company has about 700 people. And when I started in August, we were 8 designers. And now we're already 22. So really that the company's taking design seriously. And which now also goes to, as you're growing your design teams, right? Why is design important, and how could we have more of a language around it, why it matters? So here, I have it in Spanish. I have several sections in here. We'll go through what is design, what constitutes a meaningful experience, what's in the designer's mind, design and business, the economic value, design's challenges, and some solutions. Okay, context setting. As Ashmin also just said, as we all know, the world has become more complex, and it's actually moving faster than ever. At the same time, people's expectations have changed. If you know SAP well in Mexico, you also know that product is really difficult to use. You have to have a lot of training to use it, and people's expectations have really changed around this as we have more and more digital products that work. So you want to get the outcome a lot faster. You don't want to click through too much. You don't want to go ask for help, so that it's really taking a hold that we can get to those. This is a good example. In the old days, if you would turn on your TV, maybe at 8 in the morning, I don't know why you do that, or in the afternoon, right? You had it on, you had it going. But now if we have our phones and we check it on average 150 times a day, you can see that just that there are so many more points where we could fail a customer, and we can't allow a company to do this anymore. So the stakes have gotten a lot higher for design. So now, design. What is design? How do we define this? The joke is, when you take 3 designers, you're probably going to get 5 different definitions of design. Why is that? Because there are so many different variations of design, right? From industrial, graphic, even nail design, if I got my nails done, interaction design, organizational design. So there's a lot around it. So really, how do we talk about what is design? And one of my favorite definitions is by Herb Simon, Nobel laureate actually in economics. To design is to devise courses of action aimed at changing existing situations into preferred ones. So there's something about doing and then the existing situation into a preferred one. So for example, here we can see, right, the existing or the old situation into a preferred one, how that manifests itself in product. This is also something in the old days, having to fill out a wire transfer to send money abroad. And now you can do it online. It's so much easier, it's so much more pleasant and actually cheaper too. Here we have the space shuttle on the left, and now here the Falcon crew, which I was a little bit nervous with the touch screens, but apparently their gloves work really well, right? Because sometimes we have issues with our touch screens, but they made it out and back to the ISS and back. This is an interesting example. Designers, be careful. When you use the same typography for a fly and insect killer spray that you use for canola cooking spray, that might not be the best use. So just make sure you differentiate, which goes back to maybe in a little bit of a funny way, but to say that we designers, we really have a responsibility to make the right calls. We could even go now into dark design patterns, what we don't want to do. And this just being an example of just be careful that one product that could kill you doesn't look like the one that you want to cook with. Now I'm in San Francisco, and most of you know that we have two large bridges, long bridges, the Golden Gate Bridge and the Bay Bridge. And most people know the Golden Gate Bridge. It really has become a symbol. You recognize it. It has inspired art, music, myth. It's, Golden Gate Bridge, just something remarkable. And that is to say, both bridges have the function of carrying people, cars, transportation across a body of water. That's what a bridge does, right? But one is just much more appealing, just has gained this status over time. So to say that functionality is an insufficient precondition for design. So if you're only doing it for functionality, that's just not good enough. Why is that? Because we know we're still humans, and the higher up we get on this triangle, on this pyramid, to get from functional helps me get the job done, to emotional helps me feel better, to meaningful makes my life worth living. That is an experience that you want to create. That I think Ashmin could also tell some stories around that you help people feel good in where they are, right? That it's meaningful for them, that they get done what they need to get done, and not just, here's a bed, good luck with that, right? So really getting to providing a meaningful experience for people. So a little bit more about a meaningful experience. We know customers aren't won over by features. They're won over by a product experience. Why did I put a slice of cake there? You might wonder. Because if you were to eat some flour on its own, some butter on its own, a cherry on their own, maybe chocolate, right? You could do that, but it would be kind of gross. So that's to say that, yes, let's bake the experience. It tastes much better. It's much nicer. It's more meaningful than if you were to do it feature by feature by feature. So put it together to provide this meaningful experience. Now, what do we as designers do? So really, if we had to put it in one sentence, we make products, services, or experience usable and desirable for people. So what do engineers do? So engineering is really about technology to technology. They're brilliant at that. Social science, it's about people to people. How do we understand people? How do we get in there? It's really about people. What do designers do? So design is really about technology to people. Or another way, it's extending the human reach through technology, right? So when we build an experience, obviously it is based in technology, or technology helps us to extend our reach, but it's not the be all and end all. So let's not run after the latest, shiniest gadget just because it exists, but really critically look at how will it help our human reach extend through technology and not get in the way. Something else about designers being the bridge between development or engineering and what the business does. A lot of times, what I'm also seeing, there's engineering, they love their technology and they're brilliant at it, right? And then there's business that has certain goals. Obviously, they're the customers, because without customers, you wouldn't have a business. And design, especially interaction design, really translating what the business strategy is into what development can build for the benefit of the customers. So in a way, we are translators, we're architects, when we also architect the experience, the information architecture. We're tour guides. So telling you, yes, here's a wonderful city, here's a wonderful experience. How do you get through it? What happens if you get stuck? What happens if you didn't find your favorite sushi restaurant, right? So how can we be there to give you that good experience of getting you through the product, the service? Obviously, we're also researchers, because customers, they might say one thing and then they do another thing, right? So then bringing that qualitative knowledge back to business and development and telling them this is what our customers need and want. These are their unmet needs and their unvoiced desires, and that we bring this back to iterate our product, service, or experience. Okay, the designer's mind. Why did we become designers? One wonders. So the designer, there are various kinds of reasoning: deductive, inductive, and abductive. So let me explain a little bit. Deductive, what should be, is that reasoning starts with a hypothesis. And then you test if your hypothesis is true through observation, and you come up with your answer. And Aristoteles is very much about deductive reasoning, scientific reasoning as well. A lot of it is deductive. Inductive, on the other hand, is where you come up with a you observe first what is happening, you see what the patterns are, and then you come up with a hypothesis. So for example, Sherlock Holmes, right? So Sherlock Holmes goes in, observes a lot, sees certain patterns, and then comes up with a hypothesis. Then what is abductive? So abductive starts with an incomplete set of observations and proceeds to the likeliest possible explanation for the set. So for us, it's really about the thought experiments. So what could happen? So Einstein was actually good about this, even though he was a scientist. He made those creative leaps, because also for him to come up with a new hypothesis of the relativity theory, he couldn't say, yes, I see this is what's happening, but he had an incomplete set of information and was able to do those creative leaps that he came up with something new. And that's why abductive reasoning is so important for innovation as well. All right. Good friend of mine, Aisha Bursell, she wrote wonderful books on designing the life you love, even designing the work you love. So a lovely summary of designers, again, our minds, the way we approach life. We ask, what if? That goes back to abductive reasoning. We're empathic, we're optimistic, we want to improve the world. We look at things holistically, and we're very collaborative in nature. As you could see, being the bridge, being those synthesists, right, bringing that all back to improve the conditions, getting to the preferred conditions. Now, design and business, because we are in business and we design, when done well, really transforms a business. So a little bit about strategy. Strategic move is a set of actions and decisions involved in making a major market creating business offering. So that means it's something that hasn't existed before, which goes hand in hand with the second line here, is these sets of activities, performing those activities differently or to perform a different activity than our competitors. Otherwise, our marketing slogan. So what is important here is we're creating a new product. Let's say we're going to do it differently than our competitors. We're going to charge ahead. So again, for this, you need innovative thinking. You can't do it as other people have done before. You can learn from them, but you need to be able to make those creative leaps, those thought experiments that you can really get ahead to where people haven't been before. And as you can see, design helps. So here, a little bit of an overview. I'm Roger Martin from actually Rotman School. think it's Toronto. So traditional firm managers, they get their status from big budgets, large staff, empire building. Designers, we really thrive from solving those wicked problems when it's really complex and we're getting in there and how could we solve this? How could we advance it? Traditionally, constraints as the enemy. For us, we actually need this because in a way, when we have constraints, it's also something to push against and to give us this framework where we can figure things out. Budget is a driver of decision. For us, yes, actually, we do need a budget when we have a team, but we also have this attitude, oh, there's nothing that cannot be done. We're going to push ahead. We're going to figure out a way because, yes, we are creative problem solvers. They want certainty. We want KPIs. We want measurements. We want da-da-da-da-da. For design, we're very comfortable in ambiguity, right? So asking this question, what if, where could we go? Divergent thinking, we're very comfortable with that. And then good designers as well, that we go convergent, that we get to a result. So summarize design and business. So design, we love wicked problems. We like constraints and ambiguity. Now, a little bit about economic value. Really now talking about the value of design. This is the Design Management Institute. They have come up with a design value index. I know it's from 2015, but I can assure you even now those companies, they're still outperforming the market. So companies that take design seriously, they really outperform the market that says there is economic value in design. Now, more from the functional financial, emotional identity meaningful. Nathan Shedroff put that together. Functional, again, we know, it's a bridge. Does it carry me across a body of water? Yes. Does it do what I need it to do? Financial, at a price that's worth it. Emotional, how does it make me feel? So let's say, I want to buy a car. I know a car has 4 wheels generally. Can I drive it? What price is it? How do I feel when I get into it? Identity, what kind of a brand would I buy? Do I want to get a Tesla? Do I want to get a Kia? Do I want to get a Porsche? I happen to be from that town, so maybe. And then meaningful, does this fit into my world? So that's really how we can look at value from that perspective. Functional, financial is quantitative. Emotional identity, meaningful is qualitative value. Now, what do you think is more valuable? Let's look at an example. So when Instagram a while ago was sold for 1.1 billion, 13 people of them, the total value 1.1 billion, 86 million was for functional and financial value. 1.1 billion qualitative. And different words for this words. The book value was functional, financial, and goodwill, the qualitative part, 1.1 billion, right? So this really goes to say that, yes, we are in a metrics data-driven world, but let us not forget the importance of qualitative information as well. When we get into design, we also ask the question, what do people value? What's meaningful to them? As I said, what people say and what they do is different, right? So that qualitative aspect is really important. So, wow, we love design. Amazing. Does so many good things. Are there certain challenges that we might have to overcome? Yes. The design field isn't well defined. Like I said, even when you ask us designers, how would you define it? We have different interpretations. So as my friend Aisha said, you know when to call a plumber, you know when to call a lawyer, but when do you call a designer? Hopefully I've given you a little bit of reasoning now why to call a designer. I mean, we know it as design, but even other people that we can tell them this is what design's good for. A lot of times design's contribution is hard to measure because we do play the long term, right? And when you're dealing with quarterly goals, OKRs, metrics, it's hard to show that immediately you've affected a change. I mean, I think what Kasai has just done, that was amazing. So really right away you can see, yes, design has affected a change, difference, and you can see the results of what they were able to do. The last line that I've heard throughout my career a lot of times is they don't understand us, right? They just don't know what we do. There was actually an interesting study that McKinsey recently did with chief design officers, that the CEOs, 90% of them couldn't really say what their chief design officers did. And that is the CEO who has hired the chief design officer, right? So, at least they hired chief design officer. That's good. Now, for us, how do we overcome those challenges? I would say the first one, if the design field isn't well defined, we really have to define it more. And I would actually argue for licensing design. You would not hire a lawyer in America if they hadn't passed the bar exam, if they were licensed to do the job. I don't think you would go to a doctor or a surgeon who hasn't gone through med school and who is not licensed as a doctor, right? And design, I talked about dark design patterns, design unsafe at any speed. Ralph Nader, the book that he wrote, industrial design, product design, we have a big responsibility, and we cannot abdicate it and say, that's someone else who needs to figure this out. That's why, again, arguing for licensing, that we have more of a shape around it to take that responsibility very seriously and to have more definition. The second one is hard to measure. So for us designers to get more into the business space, you can, for the most part, learn within the environment where you already are. So reach out across to your business partners, get to know how they measure progress, learn from them, ask them to help you. A lot of times they'll be happy as well to set up certain design metrics for you that then you could implement, measure over time. Work with your researchers. Hopefully you have researchers on your team, user researchers, customer researchers. And then again, know that you're in it for the long term. Yet especially, I know for SAP and even Colibra, enterprise resource software, it's for the long term. When we affect a change, for the most part, it's not going to show up next week, right? There's development time, there's tech debt, UI debt, all that kind of stuff. But for it to come out, to make into the customer's hands, to be able to see that, just keep track of, we're in it for the longer run. And we will show differences if we stick to it, to that vision, to that direction, and don't get thrown off by too many requests, by too many, maybe even Jira items that we have to run around right now, right? So to have those conversations early on with our engineering and product partners, and also say, what is important that we're building versus is everything important? What do we do? And what's the value to the customer that we can affect that long-term benefit for them? Lastly, they don't understand us. Well, that's number one, learn to speak their language. As I mentioned, we're good at translation. Also build a network. So really within your company, make sure that they're also trusted business partners who you might even ask those dumb questions. It's completely fine, right? So learn along the way. Facilitating workshops is also a great way to get the design message out, how we work, what we can do, again, bringing people together. Teaching is a great way to do this, always advocating for design by facilitating workshops, even building your network. And then lastly, just be bold, go out there, do it. The world needs us. And that is it. Just to summarize, the value in this complex, fast-moving world, meaningful product, service, or experiment that people, we're doing this for people, can want to use, the divergent thinking, abductive reasoning, leading to innovation, and then really us representing the customer's unmet desires, needs, and wants, the importance of qualitative information, that we work on holistic user experience, right? Really us being the synthesists, take information from everywhere, mold it into delicious piece of cake, and good design, increasing economic value. And the last point, I have to say, designers are just super fun to work with. And together we will advance the field of design. So thank you and stay safe. All righty.
Awesome. Thank you, Heidi. Really,
Thank you.
We had a question from the audience, but again, I will take the host privilege and I will throw my first question. I am really interested in knowing, you use as example Instagram for the value of design, business value, and I'm interested to compare that to companies which I would say the functional shop is much more important. And for instance, maybe Colibra has this kind of scenario, I mean, being a data intelligence company. So how is that different for you?
Yes, that is a great question. Well, so when you think B2B companies, essentially, we're still dealing with humans. So there is no reason why you should expose anyone to the complications of your machinery. And I will admit, for us right now, our product has been built for data stewards who love to live in data. It's very complex and they're okay. They can code, they can really get in there and do those things. We're at a junction now where we have to scale the product to be able to address business users and business analysts who might not be coders. Now, this becomes difficult because all of a sudden, well, what do? I don't know where to go next. You're not helping me along. It is super complex. I don't have the patience to really go in there and learn this. And I don't even know what to look for it, right? So this consumer grade UI, we must build this. And like I said, I know SAP as well. We're all in this together. Salesforce, so that's lots of companies really building up their design teams because, like I said, it's humans, and a company cannot scale if you cannot offer a product that is usable. Where a company who buys the product, if they have to spend millions on getting trained on your product, that's a little bit of an issue. It also makes it very difficult when you offer improvements to get those to the customers, because if someone used your product and says, I know how to do this. I have 64 clicks, and now cognitively I've done it. I don't want to change it, right? We've seen that. Whereas if we would then come and say, well, now it only takes 3 clicks, they will say, no, go away. So that's what we are changing.
Got it. Good. Fede?
Yes, I would like to ask you regarding you are a former VP of design and SIP. How was this experience to develop design in a company like or in a product like SIP?
Fascinating. I see, the design-driven development. Yes, I completely agree. So in essence, it almost doesn't matter what the scale is. If the company takes design seriously and understands it, and we did have a chief design officer, right, a good design community, then you approach it the same way of who are your customers? What are they dealing with? What are their pain points? What are we doing about it? Do we talk too much about technology and geeking out too much and not taking the design, the human needs seriously, right? So bringing that back, and us designers always being the ones for the benefit of the end user and not geeking out so much. So that's why even at SAP, where you think, oh my goodness, it's so engineering driven, and it is engineering driven, but even design making a big difference, and that they can also see, we can't do it without it anymore. Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you.
We have two, I would say, difficult questions from the audience. Let's say the first one is: do you think there may be ways that artificial intelligence also enters the design process?
Yeah, without a doubt. So I didn't put my mission statement up for Colibra for the design team, but it's really about the interface that it learns from and with the end users. So my end goal is that I will make myself designing myself out of a job that AI over time, so good machine learning, it almost imagine if the interface repairs itself or learns so much that it shows what the user really wants. So yes, AI is huge, especially obviously in the data space. You're right. And I would love to, or we are exploring this more as well, because a good personalized experience goes a long way. Yes.
Great. And the second one is, do you think that design-driven development should have a better adoption?
I think the answer is in the question. Of course, it should have better adoption.
It's a biased question.
But you're completely right. And I think it's design and development working together with product as well. So it's the holy triumvirate. And so better adoption. And again, that's where we drive, where we show the results, what's also fantastic, what we recently did, we did research. And as soon as we saw patterns in research, we adjusted the design, the prototype, and brought it back. And so doing it really quickly to say that, hey, this is the design-led development process. We're doing this, and then the outcome will be much better of what we're building, because we don't want to build something and then do it and build something. Right? So there's a lot that we can do, and also bring the engineers in. Bring them in early to say, hey, look, this is what the people are actually doing with our stuff. Maybe we intended it, maybe we didn't, but maybe we can also learn something. So.
Got it. Great. Well, thanks, Manuel and Hugo, for the questions. Thanks, Heike, for the presentation. The answers was great. I will bring Ashmin back. And thank you, Ashmin, for staying as well. So we're going to say goodbye together. I really appreciate it, and in the name, I'm thankful for the audience to be here with us as well. But in the name of the audience, I will again thank you, Heike and Ashmin, for being together and sharing your experiences. It has been great. And that's it for today. We really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Ciao.
Bye,
everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.